Hi, and welcome to another installment of Monkey Mind Relaxation, the podcast chatter about the chatter. My name's cuddycudworth, as always, the host and the owner of Monkey Mind Relaxation, where we like to help all our clients and anyone that I get the chance to work with, because the goal of Monkey Mind Relaxation isn't to control your thoughts. It's not to let your thoughts control you. Now, Tony, I know you're going to understand that reference, but I know that you'll genuinely like that reference. But it's coaching you on how to change your thoughts and calm your monkey mind. So we've got a new guest on today, and I'm really excited about today because you are, Tony. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and I really want to find out about your story because you are very much aware of monkey mind, and I know you've got a podcast that you're going to be able to tell us about and things like that. And I want to be able to talk about the story that you went on, because there's a big illness involved in it as well. So I'm really interested to hear about that and how you've overcome these challenges. But first of all, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
Thank you very much, Curry, first of all, for inviting me on today. I really appreciate that. It's great. As you said, my name's Tony Gordon. I'm from East Kilbride, which is, for most people, we find out, 10 miles south of Glasgow. Right. Growth mindset goes, so basically, I'm a coach and hypnotherapist. Right. Very similar to yourself. The idea I like to try and get people is to focus on one thing at a time, to come into the moment, look at themselves internally rather than externally, which as we go through this, I'll explain what I mean by that. Yeah. And I just love the idea of helping people to understand and to empower them that they can make the changes in their own life. I'm just there as a catalyst or a guide. They do all the work. And it's amazing when they get the achievement when they've actually done that themselves.
Thank you very much. I love that, Tony. Brilliant. And it's easy that being the catalyst of other people's changes is a phenomenal thing to be able to do. So as we've all got stories, and I think the people's stories, when we share our stories, it obviously is going to resonate with some of our listeners, because they'll be like, oh, that's me. That's where I am right now. Oh, I think I need to talk to Tony. Or Cuddy in different circumstances and things like that. So brilliant. So Tony, how did you become aware of monkey mind? Because that's a really good part of all this. How did you become aware of the monkey mind?
I'd need to explain my story to understand that.
Perfect.
It's difficult for me to even still talking about this now. And the fact is how to actually explain it all. I only actually started telling people about it about 3 months ago. I've had an illness that it wasn't diagnosed with the problem. I had an illness that started in 2011, July the 7th, when I started getting pain in my left-hand side. Couldn't understand why, never had done that before. I've just been in the golf course a couple of days before and started thinking, oh, hitting out the rough, I must have done some damage. So anyway, it got that bad overnight. I could hardly walk the next morning, and the pain was like someone sticking a knife in me. So my wife, being a nurse, was like, you're doing something about this. Contact the doctor, which I don't really like going to doctors around. Anyway, she made an appointment. We went up, and I collapsed in the surgery before we'd even get in to see the doctor. Took me to the hospital and found out I had a kidney infection. I'd never known anything like that before, so that's why I couldn't understand the pain. We thought it was a one-off. Anyway, they did some tests after about 2 minutes in the hospital, did some tests and said, we'll get back to you. By the time they'd done that, the antibodies had wore off. I was back in hospital again. I collapsed at work. So went in again to see them, and then they referred me to a consultant who said one of my kidneys was damaged with these infections and they needed to do something about it. So they were doing an exploratory operation to go in and see what happens. Anyway, while I was waiting the referral, I just get infection after infection. And we didn't know what was happening. For me, it was really difficult because I didn't want to be off work. So I was having a hard time with it. Was just trying to figure out why can't these antibiotics stop it. Anyway, fast forward, that went on for 8 years. I'd been in hospital 5 times over that period. I've had 5 major operations, one to save my life in 2014. They had to reimplant. They took my right kidney out. And then just after that, a year later, my other one started getting damaged. So they had to do a reimplantation of the bit between your kidney and bladder, basically, to save that kidney. Since then, it's just been operation after operation. Anyway, 2 years ago, got called to their office, the consultant in Glasgow, to be told that the operation I just had was a success as far as the scans were concerned. But it now meant I was inoperable because the amount of damage they're now doing to try and save my kidney is causing me more problems. On the other side, that's why I'm in constant pain. So that's what I could do. And the usual when it comes to that, well, there's not much they can do. It'll just be trying to control the pain, pain management. And we referred me on to another consultant. This was my fifth or sixth consultant. Anyway, 3 months later, still waiting the referral. I got a phone call at the blue, and it was my consultant again saying, you need to come in and see me. So, and he's always thinking he's come up with something to help me, because by that time I was really at the end of the tether. I didn't know where I was going. And he says, no, he said, I'm really sorry about this, but my mind by this, my operation was 3 months prior. He said, I've just got your results of your biopsy from your operation 3 months ago, and you've got cancer. That was prostate cancer. So at that moment in time, I'd never really, my family didn't even know how much of the problems. They knew I'd been ill because I missed my family events, wedding and that. My brother came down and see me in the hospital, but I never really told anybody how bad I was. I didn't even tell my wife how bad I was. But that day, something hit me, and I didn't really know what it was like. You've got cancer, but we've cut it out by luck more than anything. The cells are still cancerous, it's there, but it's not, because what they did, it wasn't then as moving, it was going to be static. So basically I was okay as long as it stayed contained in the prostate, which was fine. We still can't help you with the pain, but now we know why you would have an extra pain that they hadn't realised, because the pressure that the cancerous lump was causing, for some reason it was missed on scans, don't know why. So I left that day, told my wife as soon as I got outside, and said to her, because she was wondering why I was called in. So I explained to her on the phone, and it was so nonchalant the way it came out. Oh yeah, I've got cancer, but they managed to cut it out. I need to go with some more biopsies just to make sure that it's not, anything's not moved or anything. And she broke down on the phone. Where are you? I'm coming to get you. So she spoke to her boss, and some nurse said, I'm going to go and get him. I still wasn't actually taking it in. Anyway, the next day, it was 2 days later, we went shopping. And all I ever remember this day is I went to Mark's, got some shopping. I remember putting in the car. I remember opening the car door up. I sat there, and I must be staring at the space, because I kept in this voice, are you okay? Tony, just keep hearing that. And before I knew it, there was tears flooding down my face. My whole body was shaking, literally shaking. And I was blubbering like a little kid. But nothing that was coming out was making sense. And I think it was, I still can't really look back on it. I've been told it's, they call it something amnesia. It's like a selective amnesia. Because of how bad the pain was, I felt that it'll come back to me. But the day sort of became a blur after that. I was told I sat in front of this room before I started this. I sat in this room for about 3 or 4 hours. And I think it was more embarrassment. I was angry. I was actually, sounding really crazy at this, but I was really hurt at the fact that I didn't know how to deal with it. I knew the news had given me that, but I didn't know what to do. So anyway, that was the Saturday. I went to work in the Monday morning, and one of the managers, I used to coach managers in a bank, and one of the managers looked at me and said, something's wrong. I went, what is it? Thinking about them, they went. And she went, your eyes are black. I mean, literally black. You couldn't tell what colour they are. She said, they just look like death, to be honest. We need to get you some. So I was the mental health first aider for the place. So they were saying to me, you look like somebody that you would help. Anyway, they took me in this wee room, said, right, no, we need to phone somebody, something's wrong. So they phoned a counsellor and put me on the phone to a counsellor. I started talking to them. Luckily, I had such a great company that I worked for at the time who would do anything for the staff. They were brilliant with it. But this counsellor, I didn't really understand. So anyway, I had it for 5 weeks. At the end of the 5th week, the counsellor says, look, I can't help you. You're analysing yourself better than I can, but I don't know what the problem is. I know that you've lost your coping mechanism, but I don't know what it is. And it wasn't until a week later, when I was supposed to go with CBT, which I know you'll know a lot about, they then told me that from what the notes were from the first counsellor, that was person-centred, that was called, that wasn't CBT, wasn't going to work for me either. They had to find something else. And then I realised what it was. They were all working on the fact that the coping mechanism, my hope according to them, was taken away when they told me I was inoperable. But I realised it wasn't that. The actual thing was no one ever diagnosed me. Right. They're telling me that I now can be managed, and that's it. But they never knew what caused it in the first place. They can just see the damage it's causing. So if they don't know what caused it, how can they tell me that I'm going to be okay, except for the fact I'm going to have pain? And actually, it's turned out not to be right. I was right to not believe them, because in the last 2 months, I've been in hospital for a week. So it's still happening again. It's not going away. It's going to be there for the rest of my life. Right. They can't seem to stop these infections. And I then went on a journey for the last 2 years to find out. I didn't want to go on this medication all the time. What could I do? And it went back to your thing, the whole circle came back to the monkey mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to everything and anything, studying every kind of alternative, complementary, standard westernization, medical stuff. And out the blue, this little thing popped up on YouTube, and I've been looking these things up, and it looked like the Dalai Lama sitting there. It was just a wee monk. He was sitting, and the way that it was brilliant, he went, "You, yes, you." And I was like that. No, he's like, you're looking all around him, and he's talking to me. No, I can't be, because I'm looking for the camera on. Did I have my camera on? And he went, "You, calm." And he started talking something like a little mantra, and it was there. How does that feel when you just stay in the moment and do not think of what's going to happen or what has happened? Just stay in your moment. And I was like that. And for the first time in 2 years, I'd actually stopped for a second and stopped thinking, how can I do this? Or how can I get rid of this? All I thought was, I'm okay because I'm still here. A lot of people who went through what I went through, probably I know because being in hospital, a lot of them didn't make it through some of the operations and that. And it was really difficult. That moment I sat there, I had the tears for the first time since it had happened. I not broke down again, but this time it was more relief when I heard this guy talking like that. And it was, somebody understands what I'm saying, what I've been through. I need this stuff in my head to stop, because all the time I never knew how to talk to anybody. I couldn't tell my family, I couldn't tell anyone. I just wanted it to stop. And for that few seconds when he did that, and the strangest thing in a lot is, I could never find that clip again. I've tried everything to find that clip when I tell people the story, and I cannot find it. And somebody once said to me, maybe it wasn't there. Maybe that was in your head. You've read something, you've seen something, and you put an image there on the screen, and it's came out to you in that way. So it was like an apparition. I don't know, but I've never found it. If somebody can find it, if somebody here, listeners are good at finding things on the internet, find me that clip. Because I'd love to show people it was real. It's not in my head. But what it did make me realise was that this is what I want. I've been coaching for 20 years, and I've always been a motivational coach, a confidence coach. And I did what I suppose like people call a Tony Robbins way in a lot of ways, is to get people pumped up and they can face anything. But that was the opposite of what I needed. I needed to stop everything and just say, right, what am I going to do from here? And take one step. And when I realised I could take one step forward, the last 10 years didn't seem as bad. Because for the first time in 10 years, I was moving forward, not sideways, not backwards. And even though I said I did it in hospital recently, that's a blip. It never stopped me in any way. The only thing that stopped me in hospital was they took my phone and my laptop off me because they wouldn't let me work. That was the only thing the hospital did, was it stopped me doing, is I couldn't work while I was there to recover. But it's, for anybody that doesn't know anything about the monkey mind, just to hear that, what it means is, the term monkey is, well, you're saying is so good, the chat about the chatter, because that's what I realised what it was. What he said in that video to me was that what you hear all the time is like a group of monkeys in a forest on the trees or in a zoo or that, and all they do is yak, 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 all the time. And that's all I could hear in my head. And I could never explain that to people. It just never shut up. It was constantly there, the pain, everything. And why me? All the usual things you would say. And yet that few seconds when he was on that screen, I didn't feel any of that. And I realised that that's what I need to be doing. I need to work on how to stay in the moment, stop doing everything else. So I changed the whole way I coach and everything, and decided that's what I need to do. And that's why I set my own business up, was to help other people to live in the moment, live from the inside out, stop worrying about the whole world does and look externally, because we all do that. But if you just look into yourself and what can you do, that's an amazing thing to do.
Wow. So changing your mind. So why is it called changing your mind, if you don't mind my asking?
Yeah, because that's what I kept doing, was changing my mind. And what I realized was it wasn't my mind that I was going to change then, it was your mind, the person in front of me. So it's changing your mind, but that's not me doing it, that's you doing it. You're going to be changing your mind. That's what the whole point of this is. And the way that I work with people is to get them to do that. And it just came out because someone said to me, is that what you're going to keep doing, is changing your mind? And I went, yeah, because I don't know what I wanted to do. And I went, that's the name. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do this yet. I just want to help people. I wasn't sure how. And I kept changing my mind with the logo, how I was going to do everything. And somebody just said to me, you're always changing your mind. I went, that's it. That's perfect. That describes everything. Because that's what we do constantly. As people, is change your mind all the time. You're always doing that with things, decisions you make. What we're going to have for dinner? No, you've changed your mind again, aren't you? What are you going to wear? How many times do people say that, go to get dressed to go out, and there's about 5 outfits later? Even guys won't admit that. They do the same thing. They don't just pull something on. Depending where they're going, they'll be like, yeah. So they change your mind all the time. And that's what people do. So it fits perfect with it.
It's brilliant. So did you, if you don't mind my asking, that the monkey mind or that loud chatter, obviously the show's called Chatter About the Chatter, did you have that before you had the illness, the illness, or was it the illness that that you became aware of it? Or were you always aware of that internal thought monologue and that conversation that you had? Did you have that before you were diagnosed or after?
Different. I didn't call it monkey mind then. What I used to look at it as then was a creative mind. That's what people told me I had. Because whenever we needed anything done at work or we had a difficult situation, Tori will come up with an idea. So tell me what the situation is, and what I'm trying to do was go, okay, if you tried this, if you tried that, different things, and different jobs in my life. Even before I became a coach in a bank, I worked as a manager for a security firm, and every time we couldn't get a situation sorted, they'd come to me, because I seem to look at like 3-4 different moves it would take to get one thing sorted. But everybody else would look at that one thing. I can look back at them and say, right, if you put that one there, that one there, that there, that sorts that, and they all work. And I always called it a creative mind because it was always all these things going around my head. Mm-hmm. But probably I've suffered a lot with this in my life. Mm-hmm. And the way I was brought up was that you didn't talk about anything like that. You didn't let anybody know that you could have a weakness or anything. You just got on with everything. And it was the worst thing that I ever did. And I realised that over the last 2 years during the journey, that for 8 years before, when I was dealing with this, I did what they call a breaking a wall down. I would, if you imagine a wall, you go to it in a house, you've got like either wallpaper, you batter through that, you've got the paint, you batter through that level, then you get chip rock, you batter through that, then you come to a wall and you're constantly hitting the wall all the time. That's what I was doing with all this in my head, and eventually trying to bust my way through it. But all I was doing was putting more pressure on myself all the time. Yeah. And it was strain that was causing me, and I never realised it was happening.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Look, we do want everyone to share their stories, because we do hope that when we share our stories, it helps somebody else who's going to be tuning and listening. That's exactly where I am. So there is a way out, because I know when I was at my worst, and when I always talk about the same book, and I'm going to mention it again because it's the most important book I think everyone should read, which is Stop Thinking, Start Living by Richard Carlson. And it was that book, and everything that'd be tick the box. Oh, I do that. Tick the box. Every chapter. Oh, yeah, I do that. Tick the box. What if? Oh, yeah, I do that. Oh my. Oh, right. Okay. So that's generally the journey that I always started with. It's so nice and refreshing when somebody shared their stories and they go, that's me. It's not just me, because that's the first thing we think. Is it just me? Once we have that thought seed in it, is it just me? It creates that fear. Right? I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it in case it's just me. Don't want to look stupid. Don't want to like the person. Don't want to look weird. And that's what we need to be able to get everyone to open up. So brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, growth mindset. Now, I'm well versed in growth mindset. Carol Estwecker, phenomenal book. Love the stories about the. I'm sure it was loosely based on Dangerous Minds, the movie, because when I read it, I was like, that's Dangerous Minds, the movie, where the teacher didn't realize they were, and she kept changing that. To me, it was the Dangerous Minds movie. I'm like, I'm sure that must be based on the book. But the growth mindset, how do you know if you've got, and well, you talk about it because you're definitely the expert on this one. What is a growth mindset, and what's the opposite of a growth mindset, and how can people identify it within themselves?
The way it simply look is we've either got one of two things. We've got a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. A fixed mindset isn't as bad as it sounds to people. It just means that you believe your talents, your abilities can take you to a certain level, but they can't take you any further. Mm-hmm. You believe it doesn't matter what you do in life, that's you. That's where you're going to go. It comes from being indoctrinated as children, where your social cultural side of it, the family you're in, the area you grew up in. So you're looking at your environment, your behaviours, your personal traits that make your identity. That makes you decide somewhere in your mind that this is as far as I can go. You find a lot of people going to work or into certain jobs, and you hear people saying, well, they've been there 30 years or 35 years, and somebody new can say, why have they never moved? Why are they still in that position? They're happy. They're settled. They feel that that's the need. They might not need any more responsibility. They may not want to change because they enjoy what they've got. And they get this feeling if they change to something else, they might lose that. So the fixed mindset keeps them here saying, one, my talents, my abilities, as much as I can do. I can't do what you do. And secondly is, I'm comfortable. I'm happy where I am. So why should I change? So what a growth mindset is, the way it was actually brought in, first of all, was someone who's willing to put really hard work in and be given the tools to move forward in life and to push themselves I believe that everybody's got a growth mindset, because if you're reading a book today, anybody who's listening here and they've read a book today, they've read the newspaper, they've listened to something, they're listening to this, you're learning. And if you keep learning something, you're growing.
Yeah.
If you grow, that's a growth mindset to me, because you're learning to grow your mind. And the only limitations that we have in our own mind are the limitations we make for ourselves.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have any limitations from what anybody else says. So a growth mindset really looks at three things. Have you got the right aptitude to it? Is there an ability in you? Because everybody does need some sort of talent to do one to the next thing they want to do. I'm not saying it will make you a millionaire overnight or you're going to have the greatest job in the world. What you are going to do is be one step further on than what you were the day before. Mm-hmm. That's what a growth mindset does. It gives you the ability to do that. If you put the hard work in and you've got the right attitude, and the attitude is whatever you face, you'll find a way around that problem. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what someone puts in front of you, you say, okay, what do I need to do to improve on that? How can I do better than I did yesterday? How can I do better than I did today? Remember, there is no tomorrow. Because if you look at yesterday and you say, okay, 3 o'clock tomorrow and 3 o'clock comes today, tomorrow's never there. So why put off for tomorrow what you can do today? Because there is no tomorrow. And that's why you people look at it as if they can do that and take that extra step, they will move the mindset.
So I would love to ask that question for all our listeners that listen. Why is it some people don't want to move? What is it? They're like, oh, it's going to be too much effort and things like that. So why is that? Right.
So I give a perfect example at this moment in time that I keep hearing people, I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. I haven't got the time enough to do this. Mm-hmm. I'm not able to do that. Mm-hmm. Why should I go for that job? Because they're better qualified than me. All these things are called imposter syndrome when you put them together. It means you feel like an imposter if you're trying to do that. You feel like I can't do what they can do. But the only person that says that is you. Until you go, for example, you go for a job and you're sitting in a position of work and you see this position come out and you go, I suppose I could do that. I know what to do. Not everybody that goes in there knows exactly what they're doing. The person who you might think is overqualified, more qualified than you, isn't in that actual job. They've not been in that position. They've got qualifications, but you could have attributes that someone sees when they come into your room that person doesn't have. For example, you come in and they might be looking for something that can fit in with a team. They might have the most qualifications in the world, but if they walk in that room and there's no rapport between them and that person that's interviewing them, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how good they are at it, they're not going to get it. If you walk in and you say to them, and they're right, go through the question and you answer them honestly. And if you don't know an answer to a question or you've not done that before, look, what I can do is tell you what I have done. If I was in that situation, maybe I could have done this or that, but never lie, never make something up to say you've done it. Be honest with the person. That's a trait they will love right away, is the honesty. You've pushed yourself to come into that position because there's a great thing, and it was Richard Branson, I think, first said it, but worry about getting the job and training afterwards. Don't worry always about the training to get the job, because sometimes you need to be in that position, and the position then will allow you to develop. And that's the growth mindset compared to the fixed. Go for it. If you get the position and the people gave you it, they've gave you it for a reason. They will allow you to develop within that role. Mm-hmm. So what a good thing to do, people to do, is do what we call a 90-day plan. And on the 90-day plan is, if I get this job, this is what I'll do in 90 days. You're going to put yourself to align with someone who's in there. So you learn from them as you go along. Mm-hmm. You're going to look at anything they've got on the internet, anything at all that you can pick things up from, because you'll learn from that. And you want to know from them what the expectations are for you in that period. So that's a growth mindset. You might not have all that qualification yet, but you're willing to put the hard work in to get it, and you're showing them that. And that's a down between a fixed and a growth. The growth will go and try that. The fixed will sit back and say, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Brilliant. Love that. So there is some other traits of a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset, if I remember correctly, and I know you're going to give me some more, but if you're not aware you've got a fixed mindset, you might not be open to feedback. You would see feedback as criticism. Is that correct?
Anybody can see feedback as criticism, even a growth mindset. What a growth mindset difference will take is, as I said earlier, they will look for ways around it. If they feel that's an issue, they will try and fit around it. It doesn't mean they always like it, depending on how it's given to them. What you've got to understand with people is everybody takes feedback in a different way. When I coach someone, one of the first things I go through with them when we start the call together, I give them little things, forms to fill in as usual, just to cover myself. And what I'll say to them is, okay, how do you want me to feedback to you as we go along? What way do you like it? Some people like it direct. Some will say to me, well, I want you to be nice. Well, that's not my job. My job is not there to be nice. My job is there to push you to get along. What I mean is what kind of language you want in, how hard do you want me to push, because you will get it. This little thing that I've got here is called a pen. Can you see it there?
I can.
Someone else told me a while ago when the call was on, stop calling it a pen, call it a pokey stick. Because see, when you sit with someone and say, no, try again. It's amazing how many people's minds will go and they'll do that. And that's the way you get feedback, is make it a bit fun. At the same time, you're doing it to push them, but you're still going to push them one way or another. All you're asking is, what way did you like that? A fixed mindset person, can take that as that another example of what they can't do, rather than taking it as, okay, how did I get around that? If I didn't do well at this time, how did I get better for next time? That's the way they take it. As another example. It's what you're basically doing is you're stacking their fears of their things, because if you give it the wrong way to them, they will take evidence personally. Because you can't do something in a situation that isn't personal to you, it means you've not either had the right opportunities or the right training.
Right.
But if you take it personal all the time, that's another trait of a fixed mindset that does come across the wrong way. It's like you're not flexible enough. You're not willing to adapt. And if you want to adapt, you'll find a way.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Much appreciated for that. So when you were, and I was just thinking, I want to go back to when you were in that spiral, the downward spiral, it did come after the diagnoses, correct?
The worst part of it, came then. I had a little bit in 2014, 2015, Christmas Eve 2014, when I had to have the biggest major operation I had. I was going to be in hospital for 3 weeks, and I was going to be off work for 6 months, I was told. So that was a difficult time, and it was really dark. But I thought I managed to get through it. What I did was I coped with it. I didn't deal with it. I put it back somewhere in my mind that I'll face all those things later. And then, when I had the breakdown that day, all that came out. Yep. All that fears from that day, all the emotion I've been building up inside for 10 years, or 8 years at that point, all came rushing out at one go. That's the bit that I couldn't explain why it suddenly happened. Standing in a shop, was it something I overheard? Was it something, I don't know, or it was just like it's a kettle, and you watch the kettle and you hear that noise as it's going. That had been going for a while, and I think it was just the steam pop, that's it. Some's got to go somewhere. And the only thing I can say that I'm so glad is where it happened is my wife is with me, because I could never have explained that to her. I'm glad she saw it, because I was too proud, too macho. I would never have told her that had happened if she hadn't been in that car.
Too proud, too macho. No, totally understand that. So was there any warning signs that you missed, you didn't see?
The thing is, I was so good at hiding emotions and hiding feelings from people. The example at work, I never really talked to men about personal life outside. We get involved in a lot of things in work, go work's nights out, but I kept my personal life and work life separate. I've always done that wherever I worked. I don't know why, but it's always been me. So I was very good at keeping things that people away from each other, talk about things that I had or things that happened to me. So I thought nobody really knew, to be honest. And it was only after I set a podcast up. And when I went to do the podcast, I was interviewing all these people who I'd already spoke to try and help me through the journey, people who gave me advice of that. And they had so many great techniques or modality things out there, from coaching or from complementary medicine, alternative medicine I thought could help other people. It might not all have worked for me, but it may for the problem. And what's that? How can anybody relate to you? Because you're a coach and you know all these things is great, but unless they can understand why you did that, and that's when the biggest light bulb sort of came to me, is that I've not told my dad, I've not told my brother, my sister, their families, I haven't told them my wife's family, and worst of all, I had a team of us in work. We sat at the same desks for 5-6 years. I never told any of them. The manager that I had knew a lot of it, but not everything. She knew all about the physical side because she had to, because I was going to be off work and everything. But she was one of the ones that helped me that day to go and get the counsellor, and I used that in the podcast. I've thanked her for it. So I sat one day, and I was supposed to set the podcast up in March, and it was October, I think it was. I eventually got the guts to sit down in front of Zoom, and probably the third time the tears came in my eyes with all this. I pretended my dad was in front of me, and I talked about it as if I was answering questions from him. our therapist actually contacted me after she heard it and said, who was asking those questions and how did you take them out from the actual podcast? Because we couldn't see them. I went, there was nobody there. I think it was so emotional, me trying to tell him, because I hadn't faced him yet and told him, because there was enough. I always felt I didn't want anybody else getting hurt. People had enough to worry about in their life, so why worry about me? And I could cope. I could deal with it, because I'd got to such an extent, Curry, at hiding this, that during the week, a lot of the time, when I was bad, it was most like a weekend. I could end up in hospital and be back to work on a Monday. I could get hide it enough to do that. And then sometimes I was going to be off a bit, they knew. When I left for work 5 months ago. And when I left, they listened to the podcast. And it was probably this year done, but it was actually not last year, it was this year done the podcast. And one of them contacted me to say, I never imagined you making yourself so vulnerable to people or putting yourself vulnerable out there. It's amazing. But how the hell did you hide that from us for so long? I never even knew how good I was doing at hiding that they didn't even know. One person in the team said she knew more, that was more than I was telling them. Because when I went quiet, they left me alone. I thought they just thought I was focused. They went, no, because I could nip. If I was so bad with all this going on my head, I would nip at them. And I never thought I would do that. I never ever imagined I would have done that with them. But the youngest one of them, she was amazed when she said, Tony, you wouldn't believe that, but you would go, what? And the way you could turn it, be like, okay, just leave him alone. He's in his refocus thing. And it was, the pain was that bad. I would put myself in a little bubble and try and hide for the whole world. Yeah. So I just became so good at it that nobody really could tell what I was going through.
Yeah. So, out of all the things that you've gone on the journey, all the things you've looked into, what have you found most beneficial for your mental health, for your health, especially down the alternative therapy line, which I love alternative therapies. I genuinely do. And I always talk about it, but I'm a big, massive fan of meditation. But what have you found the most beneficial for you?
The understanding the monkey mind. Because when I understood that, and that you have to live in the moment, and if you can stay still in that moment, wherever you are, just sit for a few seconds. Some people call it mindfulness, some call it meditation, some through self-hypnosis, through hypnotherapy like I do. I don't know what the right term is, that because I think they all cross over each other and there's a bit of each, bit of something in each of them. Yeah. All I know is if I sit wherever I am and just listen to my own breathing for a second or two, and as the breathing starts to slow, you just feel a bit calmer. And I've tried all different things. There's the butterfly one that you can actually do. There's EFT, it's called emotional freedom technique, different tapping things. And I tried all them, it didn't really work. But the one thing they all in common was sit still.
Yeah.
That was it. All I had to do was sit still. I never did that, and I never realised I did not sit still. I'd always be fidgeting, looking something up, or like earlier on the day, one of them called me, had to describe me as a dwarf. I don't know why, I'm 6 feet tall. And they went, you'd be like Doc if you were a dwarf, because you've always getting those in something, whether it's a book or reading or something, or trying to learn. And I went, never thought of it that way. But I never actually just took that second or two just to sit. And all the modalities I've looked at, they've all got that one thing in common. Before you start anything, ground yourself. And all that means is stay in the moment.
Yeah.
Let everything calm down, first of all. Because your mind doesn't, people say you're clear in your mind, you're not. Your mind has always got thoughts on. There's always thoughts going around that. You've got between 10,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
But your whole mind couldn't cope with that. So they have to let some go. And that's what that moment's all about. It's just taking a few seconds, whatever moment or two to yourself, let everything calm and say, okay, what one thing can I do now? Yeah. What's the one thing that I can do? And then go and do that. So anytime now that I feel too much is going on in my head, there's too many things going on, or if I do feel like with somebody I'm talking to and you feel yourself going to do that wee nipping, I've now learned that I know when it happens. I know when I start to pain, what I do then is I just go somewhere, sit down like that, and just calm everything down for myself, and I just wait.
Yeah.
And let it calm down. And when it's done that, and then I decide what the next step is, I can just move on.
Yeah.
And everything I've learned, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever read any Eckhart Tolle? Because Eckhart Tolle talks about being in the now. I mean, the book he's got is The Power of Now.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal book, in all fairness. Have you ever read that one?
No, but somebody mentioned it at a meeting I was at this week. And I said, if I have to, the list I've got, to be honest, on Kindle, the things I want to read,
Yeah.
I would never do anything else if that's all I did. Is things I want to read. I have got more books than people can imagine, and my wife's actually banned me from getting more. In fact, I was so bad this morning. I'm even sitting in a meeting this morning. I've even got a book sitting here, so I'm reading that while I'm on the meeting this morning because I can't stop doing it. I'm always that's about long COVID, trying to understand what people are going through now.
Yeah.
And I went. It's just, I think it's inbuilt in some people's nature. Is I want to know everything I can so that the person that comes in front of me doesn't go through what I went through. I want to be able to be there for them, to listen to them more than anything, but to get them in that moment that before we can move on, before we can start looking at anything else, they have to learn to do that. If they can learn to do that, then we can move on. That's the first bit they have to learn to do, how to take a few seconds for themselves and just stop. And the whole world seems to stop when you do that. It's just an unbelievable feeling. But how many of us actually can honestly say we do that?
Yeah, true. Very, very, very true. That's why I like my dipping. I don't know if you know about this, Tony, but I do. I love dipping in the sea, whatever time of the year, getting in the water and just staying still. And it does ground me. Even though I'm in the water, it grounds me, it calms me, it centers me, it makes me focus on my breath when I'm in the water. And I know you've been talking about wanting to get into breath work and things like that. So breath work, one of the greatest at the breath work is Wim Hof, and he's got some great teachings that you can get for the breath work, and it's a great thing, phenomenal thing. His program you can do on YouTube. I actually stopped doing it. I was like, oh, that's really long. That's really long. I just got into the moment because I don't like cold showers. I'll be honest, I can't.
I do cold showers.
And I'm still not going to do
that.
cold showers because I still don't like them. But getting in the sea when it's absolutely freezing, winter, summer, is still one of the best things you can do. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, and that is one of the greatest things you learn with us, or being on this journey, is people say in your comfort zone. I agree. Somebody said this morning. I don't know if I've got a comfort zone. I don't know if I've ever had one. What I did have is an inability sometimes to change, because I was so fixed sometimes in the way I wanted to work, people who want to do things, that you have to learn to be more flexible. You have to learn to adapt more and to do something you've done. People saying, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't think that does any good. You don't know till you try it. And that's the thing about the complementary medicine that I went on the journey to do. The reason I did it was because I want other people to walk into GP surgery when they've been told that they've got this kind of chronic pain or long-term pain, and say to the doctor, and say, because you know it's like you've got 6 to 10 minutes, you blurt everything out, they'll ask a couple of questions, and they're trying to calm it down, then they'll say, right, I've got to make a diagnosis, and then they'll go, crap, I've got an patient 30 seconds, right, here's a prescription. And it doesn't do anybody any good doing that. It doesn't do them. It costs a fortune to NHS for no reason, because it's probably not doing any good. Yeah. And how many people are still on the same prescription they were given 5-10 years ago, and probably they've got over whatever the reason was, but they're still on it. So why not go in and say to them, have the empowerment yourself to say, okay, no, hold a minute, before you write that, what alternatives are there? And if they say, well, there's nothing really helps, so wait a minute, Reiki could help us, could it not? Reflexology, mindfulness, meditation, hypnotherapy, CBT, REBT, you could have any of these things, you know, everyone's got an EBT, all these different things you could get, you could go to and say, and the doctor will sit and go, well, we don't normally, well, okay, you saying you cannot help in any other way, and they'll be like, it's not that they don't want to, it's because they're given certain restrictions within NHS about what they can work with. But if you push enough, there's more things than you realise on the NHS that you can actually do. Some things you would have to pay for yourself, but at least if nothing else, they should be give you direction of where you can find information about these things. Yeah. They should be able to guide you to that if nothing else. Yeah. Because a waiting list for someone who has serious problems with their health or mental health now is in from 14 months to 2 years. And I presume COVID will make that even worse. Yeah. What's happened with COVID, people don't have the time to wait that length of time. Yeah. So what they need to understand is, where can I go and get help? If you can't help me, the GP is sitting there. I know most GPs would love to try and help people, but they just can't. They're within, their hands are tied. They've only got a certain way of things that they can do, but they should be able to say, okay, give me a second and look it up. They'll be able to find, all right, here, print off. They've got a printer sitting next to their computer the whole time when they're on there. They should be able to then print off and say, right, go here, go and look this up, go and do that, and at least give somebody a chance to do something different.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I remember when I went to the doctors and there was, I always say this, but if I remember correctly, said, "Oh yeah, that's the phone number for the Samaritans." I'm like, no, I'm not thinking of killing myself. No, I've got no, I can't focus. I can't hear. I'm completely lost, and I keep getting caught up in what's happened in the past and I'm completely stuck and I can't move forward. What do I do? Oh yeah, you can have these tablets. I'm like, no, I don't want. And that was it. You come home from the doctors and like the doctors was just like, they were tired, but everybody, that's the thing, that's the mindset. This is the old belief. Pain, go to a doctor. Pain, go to a doctor. And it is about changing people's minds on, especially alternative therapies and things like that. And alternative therapies and complementary therapies that go along with other things are such powerful tools. And we both know we've got friends that can absolutely help with so many different things. So no, thank you so much. So how can we get in contact with you, Tony?
Change Your Mind Limited. So you go to changeyourmindlimited.com. You get me on the website for there. If you want to email me, it's just my name in front of that. So tonygordon at changeyourmindlimited.com. You can email me there. I also have a podcast. If someone wants to go there and in the podcast, I interview people who say we do these different modalities, and they always leave a website at each episode. They'll tell you a website or they'll tell you apps that you can go and get. And funny enough, it's called Break Free from Your Monkey Mind. You can get it on Anchor or on Spotify. So if you want to go there and listen, there's 12 episodes we're on from the series 1. Series 2 starts next week. And that'll at least give people alternative to any of these things I've mentioned there, different types of modalities. They can go on there, listen to a person who actually deals with it, that understands it better than me. And they give, each one of them tells their website, or at least a website, they can go and find more information. A lot of it's free. Some you'll have to pay for, but a lot of it's free. But most of these people, they'll give you some sort of guidance anyway. If they can't help, where you can get help.
Yeah, that's what it's about, getting that message out. There is so many options out there, but with mental health increasing recently, we do have to question, why is it increasing if there's so many sources out there for you to find out the answers? So that is one of those things. Why is it as men we don't talk, Tony? Why is it as men we don't feel like we can talk?
Because it's indoctrination. When you're brought up from a child, as a guy, and people say man up, I never really heard that term growing up. What I was told was grow up. That was it. I'll give you an example of how bad it is. When I was young, and if you got in trouble, so you get a fight at school, which happened, I come home with a cutlet. My dad would send me back out to go and get the person that did that. Don't come back till you've done something, because if you don't, they'll keep picking on you. So go to them. And the first thing that ever happened, I walked around a corner and I punched a wall, and I waited about half an hour and came back and went, you should see the state of him now. But my dad told me years later, he saw the wee bits of stone in my hand. So he knew it wasn't true. But what it was is, at least I left. I walked away to do something. And he said that that's how you're brought up in life, is you're there to look after the family. You look after your family, the eldest sons or one of the eldest grandchildren. So you look after the immediate family and the extended family. And that's the way so many people are brought up, is that guys don't talk about these things because you're there to help everybody else. You can't have any weakness. And it seems to be, until the generations change, that'll never change, because it's brought down from father to son. That's the way things are. You're supposed to be this way. Over the last 20, 30 years, I'd say it's getting better. That there's more people talking about these kind of things. So there's less men's mental health on that age group compared to what there is older. But the problems of the younger age group is something that we never had, and that's social media. They've got pressure there that we didn't have. We had these things like school fight things, but after you left school that day, until the next day anyway, it was gone. You might have a good next day, they'd probably pick on somebody else because you weren't worth it. They'll go and get somebody else now. Social media keeps that going constantly.
It's vicious, and isn't it?
Is you've got to have business that they find it difficult to say anything because they don't want to admit it and other people finding out. Yeah. And it's the same as the older generation, but they do it for a different way. They do it because they feel weak, or the family might look at them differently because they need help. Someone said to me the other day, a client I've got, and a comment really stunned to me. I asked what was different with the family, how do you get on with them? And she said, well, it's really weird because I can't go to help for them because they've got their own problems. Now, so was that a bad thing? And she went, well, when I grew up, you don't expect your parents to have problems. You expect them to be the one that's always there for you. But when she got older, she couldn't go to them because they've got problems. I went, does that not just show that they've been through things that they may understand for you that you've still got to face? But more than that, they're human. There's no human being doesn't have a problem in life.
Yeah.
The difference is the differentiality between mental health and mental illness. And people don't differentiate between the two. Every single person on this planet has got mental health. Every one of us.
Yeah.
Some people just need to deal with a little bit more than others, and that's where mental illness comes in. They just need it dealt with in a different way from what other ones do. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But we all have that. We can go up and down in the same day. And until men start realizing that they're just like everybody else, we're no different. But the one thing I love that you're doing, Curry, is you are putting yourself out there with doing this and your radio show that you've got, and you're talking about these kind of things, and it's letting people hear it. And that's the same message I want to get across, and other people that we know, that if by listening to any of these and listening to the ages they are looking at us here, and somebody looking saying, I'm their age and I've got that, if they can talk about it, why can't I? And it makes one person go, because as soon as one person goes, they'll all mention to somebody else, I had that problem, I've done it, and they mention it to somebody else. It's got that domino effect. It just needs people to stand up there. I think you call it role models in a different way is what people would call it. How many role models can you think of, men who've stood up and said, I've got a problem, I can't deal with these emotions around like that? In your own family or friends, you never hear anybody saying that in front of them, not in a group. It would never happen. And that's basically what I did with it. I said that I did the podcast because I was a coward, because I couldn't face the family to tell all them. So I did the podcast knowing that they were going to listen and they would hear that. But somebody turned it around to me and said, you know, it was actually braver maybe even doing that, because you've now put it out to everybody. You didn't just put it out to your family. So it's all about perspectives, how you look at things. What you've got to stop doing is looking externally, worrying about everybody else in the world will think if we admit there's a problem, because the only person that really needs to do it is yourself. If you admit there, and it'll also be better for your family, because they can understand maybe what you're going through, and they will help. And you need to realize that they love you, so they will help you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you so much, Tony. Wise words from a wise man. Thank you very much. Changing your mind. Tony Gordon, everybody.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for inviting me on today. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Thank you so much. This is another episode of Monkey Mind Podcast, Chatter About the Chatter. We will put in the links into the YouTube channel for you, for your podcast. Absolutely everything, Tony. Let's spread the word, spread the good word. As always, big love from Cuddy. Thank you very much to Tony. And there is help and support out there for absolutely everybody. If you choose to use it, it is there. That's what we're here for. Big love from Cuddy. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.